Hello, I am Jill, and today I'm going to be teaching you the Pythagorean Theorem. Don't let that name scare you. It's actually pretty easy. Anything in math is kind of hard when you do it the first time, but this is a formula that you're going to be using, and I'm going to explain how to use it. It's used with a right triangle, so that means that there's 190-degree angle there. And there's two sides, and those sides are the legs. And then the third side is the hypotenuse. I'm going to be showing you more about that in a minute. So if you're given two lengths, whether it's two legs or a leg and a hypotenuse, you'll be able to find the length of the other side. So here we go. What is the Pythagorean theorem? Well, it is a formula that explains the relationship between the legs and the hypotenuse of a triangle, a right triangle. It has to be a right triangle. It doesn't work for just any kind of triangle, but it's with right triangles. So if you have a right triangle, the hypotenuse is the longest side, and it's the opposite side. It's opposite of the right angle. So the right angle is here, and I like to say that it points to the hypotenuse. It's pointing to it. And then the legs are the sides of the triangle that include the right angle. So here's a leg, it includes the right angle, and here's the other leg. So there's the legs. And the way that you're going to do it is you're going to use this formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The a and the b are both the legs. So the legs are together on one side of the equal sign, and the hypotenuse is on the right side, and it's alone. So if you have the leg squared plus the other leg squared, it's going to equal the hypotenuse squared. So we're going to do an example on how to find the hypotenuse when given the length of both legs. So this is the easier way. The other way is a little bit harder, but not too much. You just have to know a little bit of algebra. Okay, so in this triangle, we are given that leg is 5, this leg is 12, and we don't know what the hypotenuse is. So how do we find that out? Well, we got to use the formula. So if we know that one of the legs is 5, it's going to be 5 squared, and the other leg is 12 squared. If we add those together, it's going to equal the hypotenuse squared. So I'm going to put c squared because I'm using a letter there. That's my algebra. That's the one I don't know, and that's the one I have to figure out. So the way you do it is, what is 5 squared? Well, 5 squared means what? 5 times 5, which is 25. So 25 plus, what's 12 times 12? If you said 144, you are correct. So you have to remember this, or you can use your calculator. Maybe your teacher won't let you. You got to just kind of memorize some of these squares and square roots, because we're going to have to take a square root pretty soon. Anyway, so 25 plus 144 equals c squared. So I'm just going to write c squared again. So what is 25 plus 144? If you don't know, you can line it up and add it up. If you can do it in your head, you can use a calculator. You should have gotten 169. So 169 equals c squared. Okay, so, but that equals c squared, right? So that's not the length of the hypotenuse. That is just c squared. So how do we find what c is equal to? What's the opposite of squaring? Square rooting. I don't know if you said that or not, but now you know. So if you take the square root of both sides, you're going to find out what C is. So I don't know. Do you know the square root of 169? If you can use a calculator, you should be able to find it. Or you can think what times what equals 169. Well, 12 times 12 is 144. Maybe it's 13. If you have Alexa, you can ask her. Alexa, what's 13 times 13?
13 times 13 is 169.
We found it. So the square root of 169 is 13. So that means that this side, the hypotenuse, is 13. So take a minute and to go through that step by step and make sure you understand it, because now the one that we're going to do next is a little bit trickier. All right. So now we're going to find a leg when given, that should say given, when given the length of a leg and the hypotenuse. Sorry for that little typo there. So anyway, so I'm given a leg. A is 6. C is 10, that's the hypotenuse. And B, we don't know what that is. So what am I going to put in for A over here? Oh, and by the way, A and B, it doesn't really matter which one goes where, as long as they're both on the left side with the legs. All right, so they're telling us A is 6. So I'm going to say 6 squared plus B squared, because I don't know what that is. That's my unknown, so I'm just going to put a B there. The hypotenuse is 10 squared. All right, so you should have 6 squared plus B squared equals 10 squared. Well, what is 6 squared? 6 times 6 is, did you say 36? If so, you are right. So 6 times 6 is 36 plus B squared equals 10 times 10 is, that's pretty easy, right? 100. Okay, so now we need to find B squared. How do we find that? How many of you guys are good at algebra? Well, if you are, you already know what to do. And if you're still learning algebra, the thing you have to do now is get that B squared by itself. So you got to do the opposite of adding, which is subtracting. So I'm going to minus 36. I'm going to minus 36. And then that's gone. And so I'm left with B squared equals 100 minus 36. If you don't know, you can ask Alexa, check on your calculator, or just do the math. But it's going to be 64. But that's B squared. That would be weird if side A is 6, side B is 64, and side C is 10. That would be a little bit weird. So you know you're not done, because it has to be smaller than the hypotenuse. And then that's when you remember, oh yeah, in order to find B, I have to take the square root of B squared, because the square root undoes the square. So I'm going to do that on both sides. And I'm going to get B equals, does anybody know the square root of 64? All you got to do is think what times what is 64. And when I'm working with my 3rd graders who are learning multiplication, I have a rhyme for this. Skate, skate, sticky floor, 8 times 8 is 64. I did not make that up. Somebody else did, but one of my students taught me that little jingle. So the square root of 64 is 8. So B equals 8. It's smaller than the hypotenuse. That looks right, and it is right. So if you have any more questions, please post it in the comments, and good luck with your assignment. Have a great rest of your day.